The one thing you can guarantee at the Travelers Championship is entertainment. Not only is TPC River Highlands the site of our very own Chris Hastel's first spiked seltzer.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that.
It is where Keegan Bradley broke the tournament record last year with his win. He went 62, 63, 64, 68 over the course of 4 days, finishing 23 under 257, beating the record by one shot. And unlike the monster that was Pinehurst #2 last week at the U.S. Open, we can expect a birdie fest this weekend. Taking a look at the past 5 champions there's not been a back-to-back winner since Phil Mickelson did it in 2001, 2002. Somebody who's never won it is world #1 Scotty Scheffler. And this year, he's going to rely heavily on his caddy, who's won it 3 times prior.
So yeah, I think I lean pretty heavily on Ted week to week, and you know, this is a golf course that he's had a lot of success on, and so if there's a difference of opinion, I'm probably going to lean towards him a little bit more than myself, just because, you know, I haven't had the success on this golf course specifically. You know, a different tournament, you know, I may lean more to what I feel and think, whereas out here, you know, he really does a good job of managing around this golf course. And you know, I think of another place where Augusta's kind of like that, where, you know, whatever he says seems to kind of go for me in my head, just because, you know, he's had the success, he has the pedigree, he knows where to put the ball and where not to put the ball, and you know, especially when it comes to a lot of the course management stuff, you know, clubs to choose off the tees, what areas to play into, you know, just because, like you said, he's seen Bubba win here numerous times, and he knows exactly, I think, how to kind of get me there, if that makes sense.
Let's welcome in 2 guys from the First Cut podcast. We have Patrick McDonald here along with Kyle Porter. Listening to Scotty Scheffler there, look, the first thing Chris and I agree on is the beard's back, and that's good. He didn't have it last week of the U.S. Open. The first time since he has been on tour, he finished every round over par. Kyle, what do you think about Scotty heading into this weekend, and then with his caddy on his bag, who's had a lot of success here?
Well, I'm interested to see, Amanda, how he plays a golf course that I think he's more comfortable with than he was at Pinehurst in the U.S. Open. You know, he talked, and we talked a lot last week about how he just never seemed like he was truly comfortable off the tee, and even with some of his iron play at Pinehurst. And listen, Pinehurst is a very different track than a TPC River Highlands or even Muirfield Village, where he won the Memorial the week before the U.S. Open. And I think that, you know, one thing he talked about today was managing his misses, knowing where to miss. PGA Tour golf courses are historically just easier to kind of manage your way around than U.S. Open courses, than Augusta National even, than Open Championship courses. So I think the bounce back is going to be big, and I think that Scotty, you know, it's not really going out on a limb to say that he has a chance to win, but I think some people might look at his U.S. Open performance and say, oh, well, maybe he's kind of falling off. I don't think that's the case at all. I think as long as his energy is high after kind of 3 grueling weeks, I do think that he is going to be right there with the chance to win this golf tournament at the end on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those energy levels, KP, because it really is the dog days of summer. Going signature event, major championship, signature event. Scotty Scheffler, this is going to be his 5th tournament in the last 6 weeks. You add in a home game at Colonial. You add in the hoopla at the PGA Championship as well. And he even said he was a little bit mentally fatigued as well. And I think it really showed up not only with that decision-making off the tee at Pinehurst, getting Pinehurst in the wiregrass there, but also on the greens. It was his worst putting performance since last year's Memorial, which was horrible to watch, to tell you the truth. But like KP said, leaning on Ted Scott, leaning on that decision-making, that course management, he should probably be inside the top 5 heading into Sunday with a chance to win, right? I think he entered the U.S. Open leading the PGA Tour in 50 statistical categories. That might have dropped to 47 or something if you have any concerns about Scotty Scheffler. But the way he's hitting the golf ball and the way he's putting it outside of Pinehurst, you'd expect him to win this week.
Patrick, you mentioned the weather there. TPC River Highlands still in the middle of a heat advisory, and it is supposed to be rainy, so something for these golfers to take into consideration once they hit the weekend there. Somebody who will not be dealing with that weather is Rory McIlroy. We saw that just crushing loss at the very end of the U.S. Open. And I was listening to the First Cut podcast, and Kyle, it was interesting because you and Mark Immelman, Rory put out this statement saying, I'm going to take a couple weeks off, that this was one of the toughest days I've had in 17 years. You and Mark are somewhat on opposite sides when it comes to Rory's actions after this. What do you think about him missing this one?
Yeah, well, first of all, Amanda, I don't know how much I want to hear about heat advisories in Connecticut. You and I being Dallas people, the heat up there is a little different than the heat here in Dallas. But yeah, Rory not playing this tournament, I thought that the way he handled the last hour and a half at Pinehurst, both on the course and off the course, was not great. Rory is. I think I wrote this. He's grace personified. He's been full of grace throughout his career. He's a very gracious person with the media and just the way he handles everything. He didn't handle everything very well at the very end there at the U.S. Open. I don't have a huge problem with him, missing the Travelers Championship and taking some time off before the Scottish Open and Open Championship. I think it speaks more to how crazy it is that there's a signature event right before the U.S. Open and right after the U.S. Open. I feel like I need to take this week off. Patrick probably feels like he needs to take this week off. It's a grueling time of year, and for Rory to withdraw from the Travelers Championship and kind of look ahead to July and to getting over to Scotland, I think is not really that certainly is to me not a big deal, and certainly not as big a deal as kind of the way he handled the very end of the U.S. Open at Pinehurst. So it's a bummer for the Travelers, right? It's a great field, gets just a little bit less good without a top 3 player in the world there. But I honestly think this take's been percolating in my head. I think he's really going to bounce back with a vengeance in Scotland and have a really good kind of 2-week stretch there at the Scottish Open and Open Championship. So we'll see. That's a long way away, but I do think the bounce back is going to be really good for Rory.
I kind of wish he teed it up this week, tried to play through it. We heard Xander Schauffele kind of talk about how different guys experience losses different. This is probably the most crushing defeat of Rory McIlroy's career, right? Even worse than that 2011 Masters. I think KP and I agree on that. But he's going to have this cloud hang over his head for the next month now. He's going to be asked about it the week before the Open Championship in his defense at the Renaissance Club as well. He's going to be asked about it at the Open Championship as well. I think this week would have been a chance to kind of put a little bit behind him. I mean, those putts are going to be viewed on YouTube and television for ever, maybe potentially with Rory McIlroy. And so I think if he played this week, try to play through it. I know it would have been tough. I know mentally he probably wouldn't have been there. I think it would have done a little good for his mentals moving forward.
KP, you want to guess what the heat advisory is, the temperatures?
Oh, it's probably like 88 or something like that.
It's 90 with a high of 90 to 94 and 68 during the day.
If you're going to make fun of Connecticuters for that, you got to talk about the people over in Britain that are complaining about 78-degree heat wave. It's
come on.
Insane what's going on over there. Read up on this because it's terrible for society.
Oh, I mean, thoughts and prayers for them over there across the pond. I hope it gets better by the time we get to the Open. Let's move on here. Xander Schauffele, look, he has been very complimentary of Rory, saying, look, this guy's under a microscope, kind of speaking to what you were saying, Kyle. Xander Schauffele now under a microscope since he won his first major this season here. Patrick, he's had success here before. What do you think about him heading into the weekend?
Yeah, you gotta love his chances. I've been really impressed with these last 2 weeks because Xander Schauffele really hasn't had his best stuff, right? He hasn't had the game that he had at Quail Hollow or Valhalla, but he's still gotten around the golf course pretty effectively. I thought it was shocking, to tell you the truth, that he was in red figure somehow through 2 rounds with the way he hit the golf ball at Pinehurst, and then he kind of pieced it all together there on Sunday with a nice 2-under round. So he obviously has a great history here. He's probably as well-rounded as they come. It seems like he makes just about everything from that 5 to 10 foot range now, and he's gonna love his chances, I think, going in this week. So if the driver gets a little bit better, he's been a little wayward these past 2 weeks in that department. If he's able to hit fairways with consistency, I'd be shocked if he's not in contention on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I think what Patrick said is spot on. He's been really good on this golf course as well, throughout the course of his career. So I think you have to factor that in certainly as well. Xander's been, I would say, a top 3 player in the world so far this year. I think that's kind of undeniable. It's him and Scotty, and then you throw either Rory or Bryson in there, probably in that 3rd spot, and those are your top 3 guys. Only 2 of those guys are at the Travelers Championship. So I think that the odds, I think, reflect that Xander is a top 2 guy in this field, along with Scotty. Scotty's obviously the big favorite, but I think it's deserving. His game is so well-rounded. I agree with Patrick that he kind of got around Pinehurst with nothing. I mean, he hit it really bad at times and was somehow kind of in the mix going into Saturday. And I think that he's another guy that, listen, like, these guys get so conditioned to the types of golf courses that they play on the PGA Tour, and Xander just destroys those golf courses. He just plays them so well. And it can be very difficult after you win a major championship, win the PGA, to kind of maintain that level of play, and I think he's mostly doing that. I guess we'll see more this weekend and on into the summer, but I'm with Patrick. I would be surprised if he was not at least somewhat in contention at some point on Saturday or Sunday.
Xander is the second betting favorite, sitting at plus 750 odds. Scotty Scheffler is the favorite at plus 360. We're going to go with a long shot pick here. Kyle, I like your guy. He's a lot of fun to watch, but I'm a little disappointed you didn't go with Patrick's guy. You like Jordan Spieth. Patrick is a long shot to win. Why?
Yeah, I think we just lost half the viewership when you said that with the way Jordan Spieth is playing. But last week, he finally showed something with the iron play, right? So far this year, he is 4th in this field in strokes gained off the tee, which is crazy to think about with Jordan Spieth. You think about him being super erratic, these heroic shots, getting up and down from everywhere. But really, the base of his game so far in 2024 has been that driver, and that should set up the iron play, which was great last week. It was his best since the 2022 RBC Heritage, which is his last win as well. So this is a golf course where he's obviously won before in that playoff over Daniel Berger with the shot we see on the screen, and he needs to get something going here. We saw him just add the John Deere Classic to his schedule, returning there. He's outside the top 50 in the FedEx Cup, which is crazy to think. So I think he's going to ride the momentum in from last week where he didn't make a ton of putts. He likes these greens and carry that tee to green game and maybe surprise some people this week.
Yeah, I've got a general rule that I can't attend amusement parks 4 weeks in a row, so I have to stay away from Jordan Spieth this week. But Shane Lowry at 80 to 1. Shane Lowry's finished in the top 20 in his last 2 major championships. Had that great round at the PGA Championship on Saturday to kind of get in the mix, and was really solid throughout the U.S. Open. He's playing some really good golf going into this summer. I think he's an interesting guy at Scottish Open Championship here in a month, and to me, this is a numbers play. It's the 80 to 1 number. You know, I would rather have Shane Lowry at 80 to 1 than somebody like a Spieth at a 50 to 1. So he's just, to me, playing more consistently good golf than somebody like a Jordan Spieth going into this tournament.
If you don't like roller coasters, please avoid the Stanley Cup final right now, because that is one hell of a ride here. That was your long shot pick to win. Let's go with your actual pick to win the tournament. Kyle, who do you like?
I love Tony Finau. You know, we talk about, or Scotty mentioned that Bubba Watson, or that Ted Scott has won this tournament a few times. Well, he was on Bubba Watson's bag. Bubba Watson is incredibly long off the tee. Finau's much of the same. He was awesome last week at the U.S. Open. But also, I think it's important. I love it when guys in the week before play really good golf, but they're not necessarily truly in contention, because I think truly getting in contention, like Rory and Bryson, it takes a lot out of you emotionally. I mean, you're just living and dying on every shot, and Finau was not really like that. He played awesome and finished in the top 5, but he never was really like in it on Sunday. So I love that he's playing good golf, but isn't kind of emotionally taxed going into this tournament. So I've got Finau at 33 to 1. I love that number for him as the winner this weekend.
Dang, KP, I thought you were going to go with our one and done pick, Sepp. Not Giuseppe, it's actually Josef Straka. He's probably been a top 10 player on the PGA Tour over these last 3 months. You look at the signature events, he has 3 straight top 10 finishes in those. You throw in the top 5 finish at Colonial as well. And this is another golf course that's going to be great for Sepp Straka. I know he's a big guy, but he does not hit it very far, but he hits it very straight. He's top 5 in this field in terms of driving accuracy. The iron play has been red hot. So this is a guy we've seen in the mix before at these type of golf courses like the John Deere Classic, and get the job done. So I'm looking for a big week from Sepp and potentially that 3rd win on the PGA Tour. And
if you listen to the First Cut podcast, you know that Patrick does think that his name should be Giuseppe instead of Joseph, which I think sounds better. Right? It should. All right, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the tournament getting underway Thursday. When it comes to the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, if you want to watch the Travelers Championship. You could do so on CBS or stream it on Paramount Plus.